A heartwarming tale about sharing and friendship. Beneath the old wooden floorboards of a cozy country cottage lived a little mouse named Max. Max was clever, brave, and always full of big dreams, especially when it came to food. Every night, while the humans upstairs slept, Max would peek out from his tiny hole and sniff the delicious smells drifting through the kitchen. But there was one smell that drove him absolutely wild: the smell of cheese. Not just any cheese though. This was the giant cheese, a massive golden yellow wheel that sat proudly on the top shelf of the pantry, glistening like treasure under the moonlight. Max had heard stories about it from the older mice in the colony. "They say it's as big as a mountain," whispered Lulu, his best friend. "No mouse has ever touched it," added Chip, shaking his head. But Max wasn't like other mice. He was curious and determined. "If no mouse has ever touched it," he said proudly, "then I'll be the first." That very night, as the moonlight spilled through the cracks in the kitchen window, Max decided that this was his moment. He strapped a thread of yarn around his shoulder like a climber's rope, tucked a crumb of bread in his pouch for energy, and whispered to himself, "Tonight, Max the mouse will make history." He scurried out of his hole, careful not to wake the humans, or worse, Whiskers, the lazy but watchful house cat. The kitchen felt enormous, like a giant's kingdom. Pots hung above him like metal moons, and crumbs on the floor looked like stepping stones. Max's heart pounded with excitement as he began his climb. He scaled a wooden spoon, swung across a dangling tea bag, and used a dripping honey jar as a ladder. Step by step, he got closer to the top shelf where the golden cheese waited. Finally, after a long and breathless climb, Max reached it. The giant cheese stood before him like a mountain of deliciousness. He gasped. "It's even bigger than I imagined," he whispered in awe. Without another thought, Max took a big bite. It was soft, creamy, and absolutely heavenly. He closed his eyes and savored the taste. This is the best cheese in the whole world." But then Max frowned. Even after several bites, it barely made a dent. The cheese was too big, impossibly big, for one little mouse. He tugged and pushed, trying to roll a piece down, but it wouldn't budge. That's when he heard a small giggle from below. "Need a paw, Max?" He peered down and saw his friends, Lulu, Chip, and Nibbles, watching him from the floor. They had followed his adventure, cheering quietly from the shadows. Max hesitated. For a moment, he remembered how everyone had laughed when he said he'd reached the giant cheese. He had wanted to prove them wrong, to be the hero who brought it home all by himself. But then he saw their faces, hopeful, hungry, and kind. Lulu had once shared her last crumb of cookie with him when he was starving. Chip had fixed his broken Whiskers comb, and Nibbles had saved him from the trap under the sink. Max sighed and smiled. "Come on up, everyone. There's enough for all of us." With teamwork and laughter, the four mice climbed together. They used bits of string and spoons to slice tiny portions, carrying the cheesy treasures down piece by piece. They worked through the night, helping each other whenever someone slipped or grew tired. By dawn, their nest was full of cheese, enough to feed the entire colony for weeks. They gathered in a circle, munching happily. Lulu grinned at Max. "You did it, Max. You found the giant cheese." Max chuckled. "We did it, Lulu. I couldn't have done it alone." Later that morning, as the first rays of sunlight touched the kitchen floor, the mice gathered together. They didn't just eat, they celebrated. They told stories, sang songs, and laughed until their whiskers twitched. For the first time in a long while, their little home was filled with warmth and joy. As Max looked around at his friends, happy, full, and smiling, he realized something important. "You know," he said softly, "the cheese tastes better when it's shared." The others nodded, their tiny eyes shining. They knew he was right. The giant cheese was delicious, but the laughter, teamwork, and friendship they shared made it truly magical. From that day on, Max was no longer just a dreamer, he was a leader, a friend, and the little mouse who taught everyone that kindness makes everything taste better. Glowing star moral of the story: true happiness comes not from what we have, but from what we share.